talk to you and give you top tips on how to thrive as a mum. So first of all, one of the biggest things that I had to let go of was perfection. I was absolutely driven for 35 years to be perfect. And when I became a mum, that simply wasn't sustainable anymore. And I always talk about the fact that when I became a mum, I couldn't control my life around me, let alone my emotions. So it was that point in which I learned that perfectionism had to go. And it was the most liberating feeling I had ever had. You see, I used to be consumed with always looking good, behaving like the perfect mum, the perfect wife. This would go back before I'd had kids to being the perfect girlfriend, always looking perfect. I wouldn't say I was obsessed with the way I looked, but it was really important for me to project a perfectly planned out person, to cover up really what I was feeling underneath. So I want you as a mum to drop the perfection. They do say that perfection is the highest form of self-abuse, and you know why? It's because it's not achievable. You cannot ever achieve perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. And the more that we put that pedestal of perfection up there and keep trying to reach from it, the harder it is to get to it. And as soon as we don't get to it, we abuse ourselves because we haven't reached perfection. So it's like this cycle of self-harm and self-abuse and critical words and judgment of you're doing a good job, a bad job. In the strive for perfection, I used to write endless lists, to-do lists, things I didn't even really need to do, just because I always felt subconsciously if I had this list and I achieved this list, I would then feel enough. And it was all about, well, I'll be perfect because I'll have achieved that list. And you know what? Sometimes I did. Of course, sometimes I achieved that list. But you know what? Most of the time, I just keep adding to it so that I never got to that particular place. So I then never felt good and I never felt perfect. And so it's that ongoing abuse when you are striving for perfection. If you're a mum and you have young kids or even older kids, having that need to be perfect stops you from living who you are, because you're constantly comparing yourself to other women who you think are perfect. You are making that comparison and that judgment. And when you judge others who are seemingly living that perfect life, actually you don't know what's going on for them. And behind that perfect image, there's probably something you don't know, but they have using a lot of their energy, as are you, to creating this perfect facade. I did it for 35 years, and by that point, my nerves were shocked to anything. I was neurotic, I was controlling, everything had to be, perfect, and it just wasn't sustainable. The other thing that's important for you to thrive as a mum is self-care. Now, I know you've heard it many, many times. Self-care isn't just pouring yourself a glass of Chardonnay and getting into a lovely warm bubble bath while your husband puts the kids to sleep. It is taking care of yourself, taking care of your emotions. That's where I see the most important work that you can do, is honoring what feelings come up for you, whether that's meditating on them, using yoga as a way to get into your body, because that's where we store a lot of our emotions, but it's really allowing yourself and honoring what you feel as a woman, because society really does shut down, and it's changing, but there has been a big notion of, when women feel or are over emotional or angry or crying, oh gosh, she's just, she's having her period, or, but actually it's really important that we as women own our feelings and honor our feelings. The other thing is, lovely mothers out there, delegate. Please delegate. Years and years ago, in tribes, we used to have sisters, aunties, mothers, a whole community around us to help us raise our children. And the way in which modern society is now doesn't allow for that. it is, yes, of course, we might have a mother down the road, or we might have an auntie, but a lot of the time now we live quite isolated lives, and we sit there looking through Instagram going, oh look, they look like they're having a fabulous family time, and the reality is they also feel quite alone and worn out and stressed. So I want you to create a tribe of women around you. And it's like creating a team, as if you were in an office. The way that you would do that in an office, you would have someone to do this, you would have someone to do that, and it's the same thing. Now, these things don't have to necessarily cost money. There are things like childminders, there's family, but it's actually getting to that point and going, I am ready to delegate, and I am ready to relinquish that control for the best of my health. And that really is a key thing for you to thrive as a mum. My other key tip is releasing guilt. Mother guilt is such a all-encompassing feeling. When I first had my child, I never knew what real guilt felt like. Well, yeah, now I do. And it is a very wearing kind of emotion that is there always in your mind, just pulling you down and weighing you down. And I really want you to notice where you're feeling guilty, what it is you're feeling guilty about, because I can bet you that if you wrote a list of what you feel guilty about, and your functional self stepped forward and went, well, that's actually, you feel guilty because you're not a very good mother, I think your functional self will step forward and go, no, you're a very good mother because you do all of these things. Maybe it's you feel guilty because you go to work and you're not with your kids enough, and you've got to then functionally put the points down about why it is that it's important you go to work to make you feel enough, to provide, to put food on the table, all of these things. And I want you to really work through that and release the guilt and find where guilt is showing up in your life, because as soon as you bring awareness to those feelings of guilt, you can actually functionally look at them and go, well, that's not true, and so why am I even spending all this energy feeling guilty about something that my ego has latched onto and actually is just wearing me out, because I now know that it's not true. And I want you, when that old voice comes up going, you shouldn't be going to work because you've got young children and your child's now sick and you're leaving with a childminder, don't worry. I want you to tell yourself, no, I've made this choice and I know that I'm a good mum, and the reason that I go to work is because of A, B and C. And I will do something lovely with my kids this weekend where we really connect. So get rid of the guilt. You don't need to walk around and burden yourself with that anymore. My last tip is, I talk about it all the time and I'm going to say it again, is when you connect with your inner child and your inner emotional self, your 5-year-old, your 10-year-old, that person that you were as a little girl, the effects that it has, consequently, the energy that you change within your body, it changes with your child too, because they are so empathic, they feel our energy, and when we work on ourselves, they feel it too. So the more that you connect with you and yourself, the more you will find that your connection with your children improves. So lots to think about and lots of tools to really help you thrive as a mum. And I wish I knew these things 5 years ago, and they have been things that have really helped me just feel lighter and be brighter as a mum. So enjoy. Happy Mother's Day. Lots of love.